Right, I'll start. Good. Well, welcome along, everybody, to part 2 of the Success Mindset series. Now I've gone and lost these slides again. No. If everyone can see the slides, that's fine. So then, just a quick remind about what this series is about. It's around the fact that successful executives run internal mental programs that are geared towards success, and that these are learned programs. They're not things that happen by accident. They're not things that are born with. They're things they have learned and practiced and installed, basically as subconscious programs. At the same time, there's many aspiring executives are held back because they run internal programs that hold them back. It may be limiting beliefs, maybe imposter syndrome. I think about 87% of people actually suffer from imposter syndrome. Fear of failure, fear of not being worthy, and just generally around this, the I'm not good enough feeling. But success is not an accident. It's created by ways of thinking and acting. And what we're trying to do in this series, which we've got 13 or 14 lined up, it's about developing the capability and mindset to either to overcome the limiting beliefs and get to at least level set, and then from there on accelerate up to achieve your full high performance. Today we're going to talk about motivation and goal setting, which has been very much in focus and applies across the spectrum, from people who, even if they have something holding them back, and people who are at neutral and wanting to step on up. Now, I don't know if any of you have read my newsletter, but I gave the example that if your boss turned up at your desk one day and said, by the way, I've got a great opportunity for you. It's a speaking opportunity. It's at a global conference. The CEOs from around the world, including our CEO, are going to be there. This is your chance to shine. This will be career defining for you. Would you take it? Absolutely, you would, particularly when you found it was in the Maldives. He then said, the only problem is you have to be ready to fly out in 24 hours. Would you still go? Absolutely, you would. So what would you do for the next 24 hours? You'd go crazy. You'd spend every waking moment getting your presentation right, rehearsing your speech, making sure you had all the backup materials you needed. You'd clear your calendar, you'd delegate tasks, you'd even pull a late night to make sure everything in place. You'd make sure your family was taken care of. If you had pets, you'd make sure someone was looking after them. The sheer importance of that opportunity would just drive you to be at your absolute best, completely productive. But then you know that level of productivity is inside you. So why aren't you operating at that every day? That intensity, that focus. Why can't you keep that up every day? That potential for high performance is always in you. So why can't you do it every day? And that comes back to motivation. For the speech, you know what the goal is, what the outcome could be. The why is big enough. And as Tony Robbins says, when the why is big enough, you'll find the how. But motivation is key to keeping things going. If you're not motivated all the time, maybe it's because your why isn't big enough. Maybe it's because your why isn't enough in focus. To give an example, if you were to go back and clone yourself, and you said, oh, my aim in 5 years' time is to be earning 100,000 a year, and your clone said, my aim in 5 years' time is to be earning 500,000 a year, which one of you think would be more likely to be earning 500,000 a year? Yeah, it would be the clone. It's really what goes on between your ears. It's what really motivates you. And if you're looking at long-term goals, because that's where your dreams reside, that's where you set your long-term planning, the long-term vision, the dream, what's going on between your ears. That's a lot to do with how you think, how you work, and the productivity you generate. So what's the problem with getting motivated? Actually, there isn't one. The problem is staying motivated. And a great example of that is New Year. What's the most common New Year's resolution? To lose weight. And so the 1st of January, people will be saying, oh, I'm going to lose weight. And you spoke to anyone who had that New Year's resolution, they'll say, I'm going to look better, I'm going to get to the gym, I'll wear the clothes I haven't worn in years, I'll be healthier, I'll be fitter, I'll be sitting beside the swimming pool in my Speedos or my bikini. Yet 9 times out of 10, you go back and see them a month later, they're back there, back in their old habits, chomping in a donut, sitting at home, and nothing's changed. And you say to me, what, if you're brave enough, what about the weight you wanted to lose? What about looking better, feeling better, wearing the clothes you want to be able to wear? And your answer will be something like, oh, you don't know what life's like, you're just too busy to get on with it. Because if you don't keep remotivating yourself, if not daily, certainly within every 48 or 72 hours, then that motivation fades away. If you take it to a business example, how many times have you been to a conference or a training session where the speakers have been great, the music's been pumping, maybe you've been wined and dined and you've had a great time with colleagues, so you're all pumped up and raring to go. How long do you think that feeling lasts? Will it last as far as the airport or the train station? Will it last until you get back to the office? Maybe 48 hours, but a week later, you're probably back doing what you always did, how you always did it, back to the old levels of productivity, the old habits. Like most people will just go back to the way they were before. But once in a while, there'll be someone who stays constantly motivated, who always seems to be on the go, who seems to be performing at the top level. Started to wonder what that was, and a mentor of mine, a guy called Anthony Gailey, who's one of the top corporate hypnotists in America, he started talking to high performers, to high achievers, and he just asked them, said, how do you stay motivated? Most of them would rub their chin, look a bit confused, and give a vague answer like, well, I try to get up at the same time every morning, I try to work hard, I keep my head down and work away. But they're all pretty vague. But the 10%, the real top performers, they've probably not been used to be asked the question, but they come back faster in detail. And the more successful they were, the faster they came back and the more detail they came back with. When they asked the question, what do you do to stay motivated? They all answered quickly and in detail. And the common theme was they were all doing something within the 24 to 48 hour window of the motivation coming on. For most of them, it took less than 5 minutes a day, but it really hit their performance. They said if they didn't do it, they felt their performance would start to suffer, their productivity would drop, their numbers would start to drop. But they all had a mental program that they ran every day. And for those of you that were in the last session, we said one of the ways you install mental programs is just repetition. And by repeating the same thing every day, they began to run the mental programs of success. But what do you think the main thing was? A number of things people did, a number of habits they did. There was one guy who apparently liked to do star jumps naked every morning, but that wasn't the most common one. Most common one was, and you know this, they set goals and they write them down. How many of you have heard that before? I don't know if you've heard of Brian Tracy. He's one of the top self-improvement, top performance gurus. And he was asked, if you were only given 5 minutes to speak to a group and convey only one thought that would help them be more successful, he said, I'll tell them this: write down your goals, make plans to achieve them, and work in your plans every single day. And recent examples, as you probably, those of you who watched the Olympics saw, when they interviewed all the medal winners, one of the constant themes, and maybe stuff that I do these days, I noticed was that the constant theme was almost all the medal winners said, this was my vision, this was my goal. When I was 10 years old, I wrote a thing and I gave it to my mum and my dad that said, I'm going to be a gold medal winner at the Olympics. Just about every single medal winner had a goal, had a vision, and they'd written it down, or they'd done it in a picture board, or they very clearly visualized it in their head. And you can't be the first, I can't be the first person you've heard this from. Anyone who works in a performance-based business will have been told that you should be writing your goals down. A quick question: how many of you actually do that? So
no. I suppose I'm not sure what my goals are. Donald is half the battle.
Yeah, well, we'll come on to that, Ian. That's perfect setup for later. Thank you.
I've written down a list of, I think it's more about what I want to be rather than my goals.
Yeah, and how often do you revisit that?
Well, I read it quite like, I want to be an amazing hypnotherapist. I want to be the best. I want to do this. Oh, no, it's not I want. I will. I can. Those sort of things. They were early days. I wrote them down in the beginning. You know, what do you want to be? And I do. When I read them, I sort of smile at myself and I go, God, I was ambitious when I wrote those down. But I read them and like, yeah, but I haven't really.
Cool. Well, next question: how many people do you think actually do write down their goals?
Not many, I don't think.
Nope. It's about 2%. And I'm sure you've all heard it. I'm sure you all know about it. Yet only 2 people out of 100 do it. And if you're in the 2%, you're getting close to it. Well done. If the other 98%, why don't you do it? It's simple. It's free. It's easy. You don't have to go on a course. You don't have to pay anybody. Why don't you do it? And it's been shown over and over again that a person of average intelligence with clear goals basically runs rings around a genius who's not sure what they want. Interestingly, a study of Fortune magazine on top executives in America and learning difficulties, I found that most executives had been written off at school as not being smart enough or not being clever enough. But they'd all, through writing goals and just through working hard, managed to achieve their success. I also mentioned the 2% is the people who normally do it. And there's a study of Harvard MBA graduates a few years ago who, in graduation, all of them were asked, do you have written goals? And only 3% did. 13% had goals that weren't written down, and 84% had no goals at all, other than I'm leaving Harvard, I'm going to get drunk and have a great summer. They got that group back together 10 years later and said, did an analysis of how their lives worked out. They interviewed them all, and the 13% who had goals but hadn't written them down were earning twice as much as the 84% who had no goals. But the 3% who had clear written goals were earning, on average, 10 times as much as the other 97%. And the only difference was having goals, writing them down, and refreshing them regularly. So why wouldn't you do it? Some people think goals don't matter. All the evidence seems to apply to the contrary and said if you have written goals, refresh them regularly, remind yourself of them regularly, you can be in the 3% of the Harvard MBA students. The most common reason is, I'm just too busy. And interestingly, I was at a conference the last couple of days where this topic actually came up. We called it the busyness trap. And they put the cartoon on stage of 2 cavemen pulling a carriage with square wheels and someone turning up a round wheel saying, I think I've got something that can help you. And they said, I can't, I'm too busy pulling this cart. And I think that's easy for everybody to fall into the trap of just being too busy to do something new. But why is it so effective? Actually, it's using your brain the way it's meant to be used. We said in the last call, your brain loves identifying and tracking patterns. Now, given my limitations on Zoom, which is very obvious, I won't do this as an exercise, but that's something to do over the next few hours, next few days. Ask someone, just to stand in front of you and say, trace a circle with your eyes. And say, keep your head still, just moving your eyes, trace a circle. And they will think they've done it. If you look at them, they will not. They've done a series of jerky movements, perhaps close to a circle, perhaps not. It's called a saccadic movement because they've nothing to track. If you then put your finger in front of them and say, track the end of my finger, and move your finger in a circle, they will track it perfectly. They will draw that perfect circle. The same applies to a straight line. If you ask someone to keep their head still and just trace a straight line left to right or right to left with their eyes, they will not be able to do it until you put your finger there and say, track my finger. And suddenly, because the brain has something to track, it will do a very straight line. And that the external focus, the brain having something to track, is the same principle that applies with goals and goal setting. Someone who hasn't got their goals written down, set out, what's their daily activity like? They've probably got a few sort of loose or rough list of the things they want to accomplish. They'll go in, they'll do one of the things, then think, what am I going to do now? I'm not sure, I'll go and get coffee. Then they'll come back, they'll get some more hectic activity. They'll say, oh, what should I do now? They'll maybe go and look and see if there's anything in the fridge to eat. Then they'll come back and have another spurt of activity, maybe making phone calls, and come back and wonder what to do next. And well, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that. I think I'll get another cup of coffee. And at the end of the day, their day will have been a series of random jerky movements, just like the eyes of someone who's not tracking a finger and just trying to do it from scratch. And there's some research that shows if you have goals, you'd become 20% more productive every day. So there's a lot of wasted time every day. And the main reason is that people have nothing to follow. That's why writing your goals down is so important. And you've probably heard it said that you become what you think of most of the time, and successful people think about what they want and how they're going to get it most of the time. Unsuccessful people, and you probably know a number of them, talk about what they don't want. They talk about all their problems, all their worries, and why it's always someone else's fault and who's to blame for their lack of success. As a mentor of mine used to say, Ian, you probably know her, Jill Ryder, she used to say, it's wrong to say there are leaders and followers. There are just leaders and victims. The leaders take control of it. The victims just blame someone else and find the problems in it. How do you go about your goals? Well, the main way is to have long-term, usually 5 years, whatever writes for you, medium-term, 12 to 18-month goals, and short-term goals, this week, today. Long-term goals are where you dream. That's where you decide what, you get the vision of the house you want to live in, the car you want to drive, the success you're going to have as a hypnotherapist, whatever it is, the amount of money you want in the bank. So medium term is the sort of almost the steps to the 5-year dream, and the short term is usually today or tomorrow, and it's much more mundane. It's steps along the path to the 5-year vision, but it's also things to get through the day that you need to get done, like take the dog to the vet, that sort of thing. So what are the attributes of a good goal? You've probably heard about SMART goals, which is quite good in the context of your work goals. Don't know if you've worked or still work in a corporation or a company or a partnership. If every year you get given your goals, and people will talk about SMART goals, needs to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and time bound, which is good, but that's just for the company's point of view. And they're not usually your goals, so you don't buy into them. It's just something that's being imposed on you. You'll get your goals, you look at them, you'll stick them in a drawer, and then 6 months later at your mid-year review, you'll pull them out and say, oh yeah, I was supposed to do that. So I really wanted to talk about today is much more your personal goals. How can you get success in your life? It tracks SMART quite closely, but the attributes of a good goal, first of all, it should be specific and it should be written down. If it's not specific, for example, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to have a nice car, it's just a wish. The more specific it is, the more chance you have of achieving it. And the more often you repeat it, the more often you write it down, the more often you look at it, the quicker those dreams will start to happen, because they will. Best times to do it at the beginning and the end of the day. If you can do it daily, great. Every second day, good. But after 2 days, as we said earlier, it begins to decay a bit. So you have to keep doing it regularly, but it's only about 5 minutes. They should be measurable and objective. You've probably heard the phrase, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And that's absolutely true with your goals. And objective, so you can tell when you've done it or not. If you say, I want to feel happy, you'll probably never know when you are happy. First break from SMART, I would say your goals should be challenging, but achievable. And if you get around a 50% probability of success, it's achievable, but you have to work hard, and you have the skills to do it, or you can obtain the skills and resources necessary to achieve it. So make it challenging, but achievable if you really push it. And congruent, your goals should be congruent with each other, so they shouldn't contradict each other. You can't say, I want to play golf 4 times a day and I want to be earning 2 million a year. And should also be congruent with your values. If you try and have a goal that's incongruent or doesn't align with your personal values, you'll just get a cognitive dissonance and lead to confusion and further anxiety and depression. In the SMART goals, this is talked about relevant, which is relevant to the company's wider goals. They're looking at being congruent with the company's wider goals, but they won't really worry as to whether it's congruent with your personal goals, whether it's congruent with your personal values. It's very limited to the company's position. Needs to be time bound. Again, the mind likes to have checkpoints it can hit. And I think, as Brian Tracy says in his book called Goals, there are no unrealistic goals, just unrealistic timelines. But a goal without a deadline is just a wish. Finally, again, one you probably won't see in corporate goals is they need to be balanced. You need some goals for you personally. If you focus only on your external goals, like I want a better house, I want a better car, I want to get the next promotion, you might achieve them, but you probably won't feel fulfilled, and you might well end up depressed. And this one was brought home to me yesterday. I was lucky yesterday that I managed to spend some time with Jake Humphreys and his co-host Damien Hughes from the High Performance Podcast. And they were talking about life these days, about modern life, and said one of the biggest problems is we've started to become focused on competition and doing better than the next person. If you follow evolution, human beings were actually designed to work as a community, and pressures we're under in the modern world try and drive that apart. It's all around beating someone else. If you don't take time for you personally, if you don't take time to be part of a community and develop relationships, it's actually one of the most common causes of depression. One of the saddest statistics that they came up with was in America at the moment, when they asked someone, how many people do you have as friends that if you hit real trouble, you could call on them and they would help you? And the most common answer by miles was none. So make sure your goals are balanced across your financial life, your business life, but take time for you personally. If you enjoy music, make sure one of your goals is spending enough time to fulfill that. make sure you spend enough time developing relationships with other people, helping the community, because that really leads to the sense of fulfillment and provides the balance that you need in your life. What areas, again, follow up in the balance theme, the areas I suggest you have goals is your business and career, your financial goals, family life and relationships, health and fitness, and social and community. So if you go across all these, you're looking at your professional and personal development, you're looking at financial security, looking at keeping fit, and how you build and develop your relationships with friends and family, but also how you become and stay part of community. Attributes of a good goal. And this is interesting because, as you know, I got my hypnotherapy practice, and these very much align with how you phrase hypnotic suggestions. When someone's in hypnosis, the most effective suggestions have these three attributes as well. First of all, they're expressed in the positive. A common example is for smokers, you say, I am a non-smoker, not I will have stopped smoking. You'll say, I am going to be confident, not I am not going to be worried. It should be in the present tense, as if you've already achieved it. So even if your 5-year goal is to be earning £100,000 a year, you say it's 2029, I earn £500,000 a year or £100,000 a year, whichever it is. Express it in the present tense as if you've already achieved it. And express it very personally. Every goal you write down should start with the word I. So I am a non-smoker. I am earning £100,000 a year, whatever it is. And that's a quick flip through the world of goals and goal setting. Very quickly, any comments, any thoughts, any observations? As I said last time, I really want this to be a group where we can share thoughts, share ideas, and have a discussion. It's not just me talking at a computer screen. So any thoughts, observations? I'll come back into the room.
I certainly like that idea, Donald, of repeating motivation.
Yeah.
I think you said it was every few days or something. That's something I hadn't really thought of before, because when I've set goals in the past and set intentions, they've sort of just sat there, and I haven't revisited them or recycled them for months, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it was we spoke about this last time. Clearly you weren't here. We said there's 3 ways patterns can get embedded in your subconscious mind so they become habits. One is experience. You either experience it yourself or see someone else experience it. 2, there is suggestion, usually from an authority figure when you're at a time of high emotion or under the age of 7. But the 3rd is repetition, which is, for most people and most habits, that's the most common way. So for example, that's how you learn to drive. First you start off thinking, oh, mirror, signal maneuver, clutch, gear stick, but then by repetition, it just becomes a habit. And now I bet you can drive home and not remember a thing about the journey, because just repetition has put that into your subconscious mind and made it a habit. And that's exactly what happens with you. The habits of going after your goals, they just become embedded and part of you. So if I said to you, and I would put in the spot here and said, what are your goals today? We do what they're there and say, oh, I'm not sure. You have to be a good husband to get to work. If you read your goals or wrote them down every day for a month, I bet I could say, when I said, what are your goals, you would reel them off like that without thinking about them, because they're now just part of who you are.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Any other thoughts, observations?
Mine was the similar. I've set down my goals a couple of months ago, and I wrote down a little postcard, imagining what it'd be like in 5 years' time. I wrote it in the personal time, and I stuck it on the fridge, but then kind of forgotten about it. The postcard's gone in the bin. So yeah, the repetition of it is really important. So thank you.
Interesting. What a guy I know, a guy called Steve Bolton, who's like a serial entrepreneur. He doesn't particularly write down his goals, but he has vision boards. He loves vision boards. And And you go to his house and he's got vision boards for all his kids, but he has the things that he's most focused on stuck in his bathroom mirror. So every morning he goes in and looks at it and sees, that's the boat I want. He's big into boating. That's the boat I want a year from now. And every day he sees it. And he says he doesn't concentrate, but he says, it just, everything I do leads me towards that boat now because I see it every day. And it's just,
Do you do this, Donald? Do you do goal setting? And
I
things
do.
like
I write goals now every morning. I'll be honest. I was a cynic about it for a while, but every morning I'll spend 5 minutes and say, "Here's my goals." Usually for today, I also say, "Okay, let's be clear. What am I looking for in 5 years? What am I looking for in 18 months? And what are my goals for today?" Do I always hit them? Not necessarily, but it's good to have the timeline because then you can check it. And if that doesn't work, you reset the timeline. You don't think you failed. You just think, I set the timeline wrong last time. I'll get it right next time.
I mean, I write a to-do list and every day because otherwise I just forget. So that keeps focus, but it's not actually goals. It's a thing. Well, it is, I suppose. It's daily goals.
Yeah, it's daily goals, and that was your day-to-day goal list can be quite mundane. I mean, mine today has got to take the dogs for a walk on it, which is probably not much of a step towards my 5-year plan, but it's something that's got to be achieved
Keeps you
today.
fit. It keeps you fit.
It does.
Yeah.
So we've got 9 minutes left. We can either take back the 9 minutes now, or if you want, we'll do a very quick envisioning exercise around goals and see how we go. It begins a bit like hypnosis induction. We'll just do it as a visualization, if everybody's okay with that.
Yep.
Right, if everybody just wants to sit back, put their feet flat on the floor, take a deep breath in, then let it go and just breathe out tension and relax. Close your eyes as you breathe out and just gently drift down and feel yourself relaxing from the tips of your toes to the tops of your head. Just let the muscles in your feet relax now. Let the little muscles in your calves relax now. Muscles in your thighs, just let them go. Loose and limp and lazy. Muscles in your stomach, let them just relax now. Muscles in your arms and across your shoulders where you can hold so much tension, just let them go. Like you're having a nice relaxing massage. Little muscles in your face, around your mouth, across your cheeks. Just let them relax. Breathe out tension, breathe in calm. And feel the muscles around your eyes relax. So much that, almost to the extent that your eyes just don't work. Just let that happen now. And as you relax, I just want you to imagine you drifting yourself out into the future, say 5 years from now. And select one of the aspects of your life and how you'd like it to be 5 years from now. If you've achieved that goal. And then, almost as if you're looking at a picture, a video, just look at yourself. Notice how you hold yourself. Notice the way you stand, the way you talk. Notice the way you dress, what you have around you. Perhaps the house you're living in, the car you're driving, the family and friends you have, the people who love you. And notice how successful that person looks, and then As you do that, you can allow yourself to drift into that body, like you're drifting into a new, comfortable set of clothes. Then notice how you hold yourself. Notice how you stand, notice how you feel. And feel the success, feel the pride of achievement and reaching your goals. See the faces of the people you love and who love you, and see how proud they are of you that you've achieved that goal. Notice what you see as you look at this person who's achieved their goals. Notice what you hear. Notice the sounds around you. Notice the internal chatter in your head as you congratulate yourself. And notice how you feel. The sense of achievement, the sense of accomplishment. The sense of fun, the sense of pride. And then gently allow yourself to drift back to today, noticing all the things you've done along the way to achieve that goal. Notice the little steps you've taken at each stage along that journey to achieving your goal, because now you know what it feels like. And now you can see the steps in that journey. Maybe they're not all completely clear, but you know roughly what they are. Nothing can stop you achieving that goal. Feel that now. Feel any limiting beliefs, any negative feelings, images, thoughts, emotions, and sensations that might hold you back from that. Feel them leaving you now. Almost as if there's a vacuum above your head, just sucking them out of you. Because they're not serving you well. They might have served you well in the past, but you no longer have a need for them. Just let them go. In the corners of your body, or the corners of your mind, they may have been hidden for a while, but if you don't need them, let them go. They're barriers to that success. Let them go. You know what that success feels like now. You know what you feel, you know what you see, you know what you hear. You know the steps you need to make. And any of those negatives, feelings, images, thoughts, emotions, or sensations, you can just let them go now. And feel that success. In a moment, I'll count up from 1 to 5. When I reach 5, you can open your eyes and be fully engaged and back in the room, ready for this success to happen. 1, feeling great in every way. 2, ready to embark in this journey to achieving your goals. 3, feeling fantastic in every muscle, every fiber, every nerve of your body. 4, eyes feeling fresh, like being bathed in spring water. And 5, coming back in the room, engaged, integrated, fully alert, ready for the success that's coming your way. Now you're all prepared for it. And there we go.
That's fantastic.
Any final observations? And if not, any feedback on this is welcome. Also, any topics you'd like to cover in future sessions of this. We've got a plan, but really it's around what people want to hear about, what people want to talk about and engage with. Just let me know about mindset, about success and achieving high performance or getting over limiting beliefs. Let me know if there's any particular topic for a future session, and we will make sure to cover it. So
That's great.
cheers.
Right, thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming along, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.